is the journalist Martin Lewis, who is, of course, the founder of the consumer website moneysavingexpert.com. Welcome to BBC News, Martin. You watched the budget. What did you make of it?
Well, look, clearly the budget has three different areas. You've got the macroeconomics, you've got the public spending, and then you've got my bit, which is the consumer finance. Now, if you look just at that third, and I do very strict that I'm only looking at it in isolation, this was, of course, an electoral budget trying to put more money into consumers' pockets. And I think in general it has succeeded doing that. There's the big national insurance cut, which means national insurance will drop 4% from the beginning of January to where we are in April, because it dropped 2 percentage points in January. And then for me, the big one I've been campaigning on, and I was delighted to see, is about the changes to child benefit, because that has been a gross unfairness that has penalised single parent, single earner and dominant earner families since 2013. And I hope we're going to see an end to that.
And you've been campaigning on that. I was reading your tweet about that. You said we got the win on child benefit. And you also wrote that the Chancellor had tipped you off about this. Because you've been campaigning so heavily on it. Were you hoping for a different threshold, or were you happy with where it was set?
I mean, it's pretty close to, he's done it almost exactly what I said to him. The genesis of this is when I was interviewing the Chancellor for my TV show in January, I asked the public, what do you want me to ask him about? And I got thousands of responses, but staggeringly about a third of them were on the higher income child benefit charge, which blew me away. And then when I spoke to the Chancellor, I'm going to read you the question I put to him, because I think this sets out why it's so important. This was from Alan. My son's partner tragically died 34 days after giving birth to twins. My son's taken a new job that now pays him 60,000 and is struggling with the cost of living and mortgage repayments after the loss of a second income, so lower income even though his individual job went up. HMRC has asked him to repay child benefit. This seems grossly unfair that a couple can bring in nearly 100 grand, but a single breadwinner loses out once they earn more than half of this. Well, I put that to the Chancellor in the show. Nearly 3 million people were watching. The Chancellor admitted it was a gross unfairness, so it would have been difficult for him to do nothing. Now, I understood at the time there's no way to practically start assessing income based on family income than individual income was something that could be put in place for the budget. So what I had said is you should be consulting on that and get that changed as quickly as possible, and in the meantime to increase the thresholds. I had suggested he increase the threshold to £65,000. which would have put us in the same position that we were in when this was introduced in 2013 if it had gone up with inflation. But what he's done is he's put it up to £60,000. But then instead of the top level now being 70 rather than 60, the level where you lose all your child benefit is now £80,000. So I had said go for 65 to 70,000. He's gone for 60 to 80,000 pounds. I'm not going to quibble over that. The most important thing is many people who've lost child benefit because of this higher income charge and an unfairness for single parent families are hopefully going to be put back in the system, and the whole thing should be fixed by April 2026.
So a win for you on that. Just briefly, Martin, what other things would you have liked to have seen in that budget that perhaps didn't show up?
Well, a lot of my stuff, it tries to be apolitical rather than redistributive. I was disappointed to see that we lost the opportunity for the Chancellor to change LISAs, which is the lifetime ISA, a product for first-time buyers aged 18 to 39, where they get a 25% boost on their savings towards a first home worth up to 450 grand. The problem is, since it was introduced in 2017, house prices have gone up 30%, but the threshold hadn't increased, which means many people who did what the state told them to do, to save in a LISA as a first-time buyer, not only will they not get the bonus if they buy a house that now is over 450,000, but they actually have to pay a penalty to get their own money out of 6.25%. So if you've saved 20 grand in this government vehicle and you're living in the southeast of England, where in London 80% of boroughs first-time buyer prices are over 450 grand, you actually have to give the state over £1,000 if you save 20 grand to get your money out. I was hoping he'd wipe that. Because I've been campaigning on that, he spoke to me about that too. He told me he was sorry he couldn't do it, but he wanted to do a whole lot more on first-time buyers, but they're waiting until house prices are confirmed as consistently going up before they do anything, and he hopes then, well, we'll have to see if he's still in power, but he hopes then to change the LISA regime. So I was very disappointed we didn't see a change to that. There are many young people who are really struggling because of that charge, and it penalises them, paying a fine to the state. But that campaign isn't over, and certainly I think the door is open for a change in future, whomever is in government, and I'll continue to campaign on it.
And Martin, of course, you have a large community through your Money Saving Expert website. What's been the reaction from people that have been in touch with you today to today's budget?
Well, look, let's be obvious. We all know the political position we're in. And I did a poll on Twitter and asked, was it better than expected, worse than expected, or as expected? And most people say worse than expected. But then I don't remember a budget where they haven't said worse than expected. I mean, there is certainly pessimism around the country at the moment. Many people feel, and quite understandably in some senses, that our rail system and our NHS and our public services are broken. And certainly a 2% change in national insurance, I'm not sure is going to shift the dial on the sentiment that is out there. But that's a bit too political for me. That's not my bag. On the whole, if I just look at the consumer finance element, there are some welcome things here. Not everything everybody would have wanted, but a little bit more money in people's pockets. But whether that has changes the dial when you look at public services and the wider economy is for individuals to make up their minds themselves.
Okay. Well, we'll stop that there now, Martin, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on today's budget. Martin Lewis there, our money saving expert.